Hi and welcome to this video in the QPSMR Real Productivity Gain series. And in this video we're going to look at how QPSMR and MRDCL work together. So first of all, what is MRDCL? And a good question might be, do I need it and will it benefit me? Well, QPSMR, as you probably already know, is a fairly easy piece of software to use. It's all driven through menu systems and usually you can do most of the things that you want. MRDCL goes a significantly step higher, and MRDCL is a scripting language which interacts with QPSMR to allow you to produce your analysis. Now, with a scripting language, you just get an awful lot more power than you do with QPSMR. And one way of looking at that might be to say, well, that QPSMR uses a small percentage of the tools that are available in MRDCL, and really it's just a sort of part of that MRDCL system in terms of what it can achieve. So if you find when you're using QPSMR that some things are very long-winded to do and take a lot of time, or they're repetitive to do, and you would think there's a better way of doing it, it's almost certain that MRDCL scripting would be a solution. But of course there's a downside to it. The MRDCL scripting does really need some skill to make it all happen. So it's not something you're going to learn in just a couple of minutes. So if you're not got a team that's sufficiently skilled in using that sort of software or adept at learning that sort of software, it might not be the right tool for you, but it does offer real power, the ability to produce pretty much any tables you'd ever want, to deal with complex situations, to deal with tracking surveys more efficiently, and to do things that are perhaps just laborious or repetitive in QPSMR. So let's look at, first of all then, in this video, how QPSMR and MRDCL interact, because essentially they're using the same process to produce the results that you're producing when you come to do tables. And we're going to dissect that now and actually look at a project and see what's happening. So in this folder here, you'll see I've just got two files, a QDF for this project that I've got open and a data file called dataexported.ask. So let's go to the window with the project in, and let's just quickly create some tables and just monitor what happens. So I'm going to open a tables file here, and I'm going to call these my tables. And sure enough, that's going to make me a QTF, just you'd expect. And I'm going to insert some standard tables. And I'm going to take you through what happens. So I'm going to pick an analysis banner down here called analysis breaks. And I'm just going to pick pretty much all the questions in my survey. There we go, 24 entries. And I'm going to run that. So that's my tables, 24 of them. And I'm going to run it. And I'm going to save it. And there's my table. So that's just sort of using QPS in the traditional way, producing a set of tables, one for every question, by a standard banner of gender, region and country. Now let's go a bit further behind the scenes now and see what's happened. You'll find in this folder, as I'm sure you've looked before, a whole series of other files. Now you've probably looked at the text files, which are the tables that generate and were displayed at the screen there in text format. So there they are again. And you've most likely looked at or used the tables that are in a CSV file. And if we open those, we will see that the same tables appear in a CSV file. Excel's just opening this up now for me. Here we are, and here's the tables now, 24 tables in a CSV file, and I can obviously scroll down that. And you'll also might have seen that you've got a table of contents in here, although a lot of people don't know that exists. So there's a table of contents here so that you can print off a list of your tables. The file you might not have looked at is the mytables.stp file that got generated for me, having made that QTF. What actually happened here in the process is that QPS generated this STP file and ran it for me. Now, you may not have ever looked in here, but this is actually just MRDCL script. So if we open it up, you'll see that it's output MRDCL script. Now that might quite scary script at first if you've never seen it, but actually with some effort you can probably get your way through this and understand a lot of what it's all about. And we do have another video in the series that will take you through what all this syntax means. Let's just look at one question very quickly. Here we go. If we go back to our QDF here, I'll just close this window here and close these tables. You can see I've got question 3 in here, which is business location. It's got 14 responses. If I drill down into that, the data location is 9 to 10. And here are my 14 responses. And what QPS does when it runs it, it generates MRDCL script for you, and it runs that script for you. So what's really happening here is that QPS is generating the script and then running it for you. So it really is just sort of using some of the tools that are available in MRDCL, but not all of them by any stretch of the imagination, because QPS doesn't have all the facilities that MRDCL has. So here we can see we've defined a variable. It's called it a single variable. It's called question 3. The data's in 9 to 10 and the codes are 1 to 14. Here's the question title, and here's the labels UK, USA, France, and so on that apply to that. Now that's all using syntax that you can you'd have to learn to be able to use MRDCL, but it's an upward path that once you can understand this syntax, you can start to take some shortcuts that you can't if you're using QPS, or might be very laborious to use. And we're going to cover that in a separate video. So if I wanted to put this into MRDCL now, what I would do here is I would copy this to another file. So I'm just going to file, copy this into here, and I'm going to save it as my run.stp. It must be called .stp. And the reason I've done that is giving it a different name is that if I were to run this again in if I made changes in this SDP file and then run it with MRDCL, but I reran my tables.qtf again, it would just overwrite this file and take away my changes. So it's just a good practice to have a copy of that file available to you, so that you've got it in a separate file. So let's now go and open up that file that we made, my run.stp. There it is, and we can open it, and I can run this, and you can see I just get exactly the same results, because effectively I'm using the same system or the same tools to run that script and generate the tables for me. But what it means is I can get into that script now and start to write more complicated tables, complicated variables, and build some really clever tools for automating my runs and automating analysis and dealing with things like tracking studies more effectively. So that's how we can actually convert a run and use it. One thing that you'll find here is that QPS puts out a lot of code at the top here, which are called run control parameters. Now, you might not want all of those, and again, we cover that in a bit more in detail in another video. But it actually sort of deletes a lot of the files that MRDCL users tend to use. So you might take this one out here. Tidy means it gets rid of all of the files where you might want to see errors. So I would take those files out, and you're probably not interested in those. You can set those if you want to in some other way. So I tend to remove some of those tests in there that I think are fairly redundant and not really what most MRDCL users use. Now, the other thing that you might want to do when you're working in QPS is to grab a quick table as well. And you have to be a bit more on your toes if you want to use script from a quick table. Now, if you do a quick table, let's do question 3 by question 5 here. If I run that, you'll see it'll generate that table. And if we go to the folder where the work is, you'll see it's made a file called quick001.stp, just like it did for my tables here and when I converted it into my run. But if you want to get at this script, if you close that, you'll find that these files will disappear. If I close that now, you'll see that when I refresh, those files have actually gone away. So if you wanted to take the script that's generated by a quick run, you would sort of need to copy it and intercept it before you actually close those tables. Otherwise, they would just disappear before your eyes. Well, that's the end of this video. In the next video, we're going to look at that script that it's generated in a bit more detail and just give you a taster of some of the things that you can do. In the other videos in this series, we're going to look at how you can use the script within QPS to really build quite powerful functions to really make your work much more effective. But that's all in this video. Thank you.